Welcome back, everybody. That was a short break. I hope you're well seated and I hope you're prepared to take some notes. I'm personally really happy about the upcoming talk, and I'm also really excited and looking forward to hear about it. Throughout the pandemic, Herman Miller as a company has been really active in doing online events and also in publishing loads of research and papers on what they see the future looking like. So I'm really happy to have Bertie Van Wyk, who is a workplace specialist for Herman Miller, joining us today to talk about the future experience of work. Hi, Bertie. Are you here?
Thank you very Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much for having me.
So excited to have you. I mean, we've met in London quite a few times, so I'm happy that we can also involve you in this event and that you can share the future of experience of work with the viewers. I will let you share your screen. As soon as I see it, I'll let you know. And then I'll disappear for a bit to hand over the floor to you.
Fantastic. Before I start sharing my screen, I thought I'd just jump in before I start going into the presentation.
Please
with just
go
a
for
little
it.
bit, with one key tip. I always like starting my presentations just with a little bit of additional insight. So before we jump into the juicy stuff, I thought I'd give a little bit of information which will hopefully help every one of you working today and your teams to work a little bit better. So to try and make your lives a little bit easier. And one of the first things I want to say is, might sound counterintuitive because we're having a video call right now, but it is to actually have less video calls. So currently what happened with it in this time of crisis, the first thing that happened is we all jumped onto Zoom, we all jumped onto Skype and all these different mediums to help us connect with others. But the problem here is if we have so many video calls, our brains get really tired, because when we have conversations like you and I do, we're actually trying to mimic the other person's emotions. But because of video conferencing, and there's a little bit of a lag, and it tries to make you look a little bit prettier than you with a little wipe over the screen, we actually get mentally much more tired. So do me a big favor, if you have a big team meeting, have an agenda, and of course have that on a video call. But if you have one-on-one video calls with any of your team or your colleagues, always try and do it by phone, because then you listen to their breathing, you actually pay more attention to them, you're not worried about what you look like, and by the end of the day, you'll feel that you've got loads more energy. So do me a big favor, less video or conferencing calls.
That's such a good advice. I think yesterday someone talked about the Zoom tiredness or Zoom fatigue.
Yes, yes.
And I think this is definitely a new type of thing that starts to come out of the COVID-19. So it's a good advice. Thank you for sharing it.
Fantastic. So let's jump into this. I'll just share my screen.
Yeah, I'll let you know when I see it.
Share screen. Share screen. Okay, let me just go application window, PowerPoint. Can you see the screen?
It's loading. Yeah, now we see it.
It says the future experience of work.
Exactly, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So what I'm here to talk to you about is they asked me to talk about the future experience of work. So I know that there's been quite a few speakers who talk about the impact of everything right now. I want to try and look a little bit further. So I'm going to look at post-crisis, so 5, 6, 7 years of planning. Right at the end of this talk, I'll just very quickly touch base on what you can do today and a few little hints for returning to work. But mainly what I want to focus on is the future. So we as Herman Miller, we spend millions on research trying to understand what works and what doesn't work in workplaces all around the world. And we put all of this together, and then over the last 20 years, we've always done future projections of what the world would look like. A lot of it can be quite heavy and extremes, but it gives us an idea of where we're going. I am a workplace specialist, and my main job is just to live and breathe research. So I just share as much as I possibly can. If you have any questions, we're going to have a 15-minute Q&A. Feel free to ask me anything about the future of work, current work, happiness in work, returning to work, and I'll be very happy to cover that right at the end. So without further ado, let's jump in. I have quite a lot to cover, so I'll try and make sure that I will do a little bit of shorter bits and a few little extra questions at the end. So the first thing is we have been doing this for a very long time. This is when we look at the future of work in 2001, we did one, 2006, 2012. A few years ago, we did another one. But I brought this up specifically because in 2006, we did a projection on the future of work. And one of the scenarios, we always do 3 scenarios, was called Grounded. And Grounded was actually a projection of the future where there's fluctuating oil prices, there's a health crisis, there is pandemics, there's a greater discrepancy between the rich and the poor, and it looks at some of the impact. So even back then, we looked at what does this mean for virtual learning, for home working, for connectivity, for using loads of different agile spaces. So it's funny to think that some of these projections that we make might look extreme, but the truth is they might actually also happen. So we have been looking at this for quite some time. So what I want to cover with you is the future of work. So we expect in the next 5 to 7 years, these are the 3 main key points. Communities, not companies, the machines work for us, and we want control. Each one of these has got subdivisions. I'm not going to cover the middle one, the machines work for us, as we won't have enough time. So with related to co-working, I'm going to try and focus on the other 2, because I think specifically for you, you'll have a greater ability to have an impact on this. So without further ado, let's jump in. Communities, not companies. So workers will increasingly seek out and stay with organizations committed to people and purpose, not just profit. I mean, even in this time of crisis, a lot of us have found that we built a better community with the people around us. We try and deal with this crisis as a community. And when we go back into workplaces, it's still the same. We will be chasing communities, not companies, which is a really, really good story for co-working, a really, really good projection also for co-working. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. But there's these 4 key elements around this: diversity and equity, culture and community, teams at work, and growth and well-being. So these are the 4 focus points. So first of all, we got diversity and equity. The most valuable workers will choose organizations that prioritize diversity, equity, and actual inclusion, which for me, it's a kind of almost a great summary of co-working. But even by diversity, I don't just mean diversity of age or gender or skin color. I mean the diversity in family structures. I mean diversity in perspectives. I mean diversity in skills and different types of experiences. So the environments that the best employees want to go into, they want to feel that they get touch base of all these things. And again, that is a focus thing that you need to promote and highlight about great co-working spaces. The diversity is incredible, and we strive, the best employees, we actually strive for that. We also know that heterogeneous teams outperform homogeneous teams, which means teams that are more diverse perform significantly better than teams that look exactly the same. The company's employees that are all exactly the same, that hire the same people. The more diverse you are, the better you do. Hewlett-Packard's neurodiverse software testing teams are actually 30% more productive than any of the other teams. So the more neurodiverse they are, actually the more productive that you can be. Next up, we got culture and community. Of course, in the co-working world, it's community, and community is number 1. People will expect their organizations and workplaces to foster a culture and community. And the great thing about wonderful co-working spaces is that one person that a lot of organizations don't have and strive to have, and that's a fantastic community manager. A person that tries to make sure that you are happier doing your job, that you've got all the things that you really need to make you feel better in the space that you're in. Organizations are starting to try and copy that by having, employee managers or engagement managers. But co-working spaces have this. They have a community manager, which is absolutely fantastic. And the reason is the brain responds as strongly to social rewards as it does to actual money. So we will strive when we choose co-working spaces, and when organizations, which we'll see in the future now, are going to massively increase their use of co-working spaces. which is something we should really, really highlight. Because it's all those things we can get that we can't get necessarily in a normal organization or a normal company. One of the big things that we always say in Herman Miller is we feel before we think. So we as humans, we create a long-term perception about you as an organization or as a company when I come in there within a few seconds. So how do you make people feel? What is that first experience when someone comes into your space? Do you blow them away? Do you go, wow, this is amazing? Because that, it makes or breaks their decision of whether they're going to engage with you. It better be amazing because we make decisions very, very quickly. One of the key points we also kind of mentioned around this is what's really important to think about the spaces of the future is we're moving from required circulation, so this is how the space works, to desired connections. So it isn't those guys move to that side, they move to that side, and they never see each other. It is, how is the space, the circulation designed so I can always bump into people? I can always connect with new people. And that's what we need to look at in space design. So teams at work. So diverse teams will drive innovation and success for organizations that support their unique needs. And the thing I always mention here is, even if you're working from home right now, like a lot of us do, we're almost in isolation. But we know, in Herman Miller, we say you plus me equals 3. It doesn't include 2. Even working from home, I can't wait to go and finally connect with others. And that's what my local co-working space will provide for me. We know that high quality connections, if you create high quality connections, it improves an organization's functioning. It improves the employee's level of engagement. It improves resilience. It improves teamwork, and it improves the individual's physical and mental health. That is the power of connection. And that's one of the biggest things that co-working organizations now need to sell so heavily, to say, the thing that you've been missing, we have that. How do you still promote yourself, still connect with others? How do you get your co-working community to still actually connect with others? So the workplaces of the future are actually places that will build your community and provide an opportunity for, how can I say, for actual meaningful connections. In the future, when we go into spaces, when we go into environments, it'll be by complete choice. It won't be because I have to. So I'll be looking forward to going to my co-working space because, yes, I will have a meaningful connection with others. And that's what we need to focus on. Let's go to growth and well-being. Now, organizations that prioritize growth and well-being will develop the workers who shape the future. One second. PricewaterhouseCoopers came out and said that millennials actually want, and I hate it when people talk about millennials. I really hate it, but I'm actually doing it now myself. But they say that we want flexibility and on-the-spot training more than we want another pay rise. And that training thing is another thing you'll have to focus on in the future. We want greater amenities, we want greater flexibilities, but also in-space training. So highly flexible spaces, large spaces, super adaptable furniture you can move around so that I can learn more within that environment. Training is going to become one of the #1 things that we all will have to do when we start looking at AI and automation and how to work with it within our own jobs. One of the biggest things that we talk about in growth and well-being is if you make a good friend in that space that you go to, that you love to work in that office, if you make a good friend in an office, according to Gallup, you are 50% more satisfied doing the exact same job. 50%, which is, I think, absolutely astounding. And if you have a best friend in the office, you're up to 7 times more likely to engage fully in your work. So the power really is how do we build these friendships? The best spaces of the future, we will go in specifically because we can connect with others. We have a better connection with others. 54% of people actually believe that exclusion is a form of bullying. So we want to still build that actual connection. And neuroscience actually shows us that we process social pain on the same level as we do physical pain. So the simple line around this is, in the future, we will go to work because we want to, not because we have to. And that space needs to build that actual community. One of the best things I see about really good spaces and spaces that we design in the future is they remember that you have a central plaza, a central focus point. Doesn't matter if you have 10 floors, there needs to be one space, one main area where everyone loves to go. Even if it's large, you can tier the space with furniture, different heights, standing, sit, lower, to make it cozy so that if there's 10 people in there, it's cozy. And if there's 150 people in there, it's just as cozy. So tiering the furniture is super important, but a central point. Even if you have multiple floors, if it's too nice on each floor, very, very nice, then when do I get a chance to commit or connect with others? So one great space is super important to build a better connection and a bigger community, because we are chasing communities, not companies. Great. So I'm skipping the AI and automation because there's just not enough time. I actually have 10, 15 minutes left and I've got quite a lot to cover. So I'll try and do this as quickly as I possibly can. So we want control, user experience, workplace agility, comfort, and variety. So first of all is user experience. People will demand user experience that are defined by ease, speed, and customization. 75% of e-commerce consumers expect same-day delivery from every single company by 2021, which is really, really quite incredible. We as the human race, we're losing pace. We want adaptability as quickly as possible. I think the McDonald's HQ, in the actual McDonald's HQ, employees use one app to book meetings, for wayfinding, for controlling the temperature in their space. And they've actually reported increase in employee satisfaction by 76%. And staff attraction or staff talent acquisition by 22%, which I think is really, really great and incredible. Workplace agility. So workplace models will become increasingly flexible as organizations pursue agility in all aspects of their business. So all companies now will start looking at incorporating some form of co-working, for instance. So home working, co-working, and their own office will be the future. We want this agility. This working from home is now kind of tested on an unprecedented level. But for a lot of people, it isn't working. And a lot of people also maybe don't necessarily want to go back into the space or get onto public transport. So having all these options is super important. I know you guys had a speaker on from JLL at some point, but I know they predicted that by 2023, 30% of the US market is going to be flexible space solutions, which is incredible. It's accelerating even further now. And I'll try and cover that right at the end. Let's go on. And comfort and variety. So workplace designers will prioritize comfort and variety. Oh, sorry, I think I might have skipped one. Let me just double check. We did do workplace agility, comfort and variety. So this is one of our biggest focus. In the spaces that we create, variety and choice is two of the most powerful words you have. And for the future, it's gonna stay the same. We want to be able to choose where we work within the actual environment. I want multiple options in your co-working space for me to choose the work I want to do based on what I need to do that day, whether it's connecting with one other person without having to book a massive meeting room, whether it's getting a group together, whether it's finding my own hiding space, again, without booking, or whether it's just sitting in a kind of a sociable area, but still have somewhere where I can plug in my phone or my laptop to charge. This is super, super important. And we know that working environments with high flexibility, they report a higher increase in effectiveness scores for productivity, on satisfaction, on a sense of community, and a sense of pride in the place that they work. So this is super, super important. We need more variety in the environments that we create in the future. Okay, so I've got a little bit of time left, and I just wanted to quickly touch base on two key things. So first of all, what's next? So let's just look at today. So one of the biggest things that we need to explain is, as co-working organizations, we can really help companies explain best how to work with the virtual world. So how to work with, say, for instance, remote teams, how to manage kind of remote teams, how to create a great digital a kind of virtual team where everyone feels healthy and productive, where everyone feels that they are heard. These are things that we need to communicate and train people on. Explain things like, it's best to work unsynchronized. So if you use things like Microsoft Teams or Google Docs, I can work on something at a time that suits me, and my colleague can work at a time of something that suits them, without sending us emails at strange times of the day. So some simple things like that, where you can educate and explain to people there are great tools out there to make you work better, to make you work more efficient. One of the biggest risks that we're running right now is that people are close to burnout. People that aren't used to working from home right now are working an hour or 2 or 3 more in a day and are very, very, very close to burnout. So we need to explain and train people on what is best practice, how to work with your teams, and as leaders, do a better connective team. The other thing we can do is, and specifically in the co-working community, is to stay connected. People are very isolated and people are feeling very, very alone. So what can I do? What can I do for my community? How can I engage with them? Can I have social virtual coffees once or twice a week, just so people can get on and connect with others? What tools are available? What great insights are there? And then just things around helping people understand how to manage performance, specifically in this time. Because being in a space and evaluating whether someone arrives in the office is not a measurement of performance, it's a measurement of obedience. And then we have to look at performance. So we have to train and educate. And you can help larger organizations come into this whole working environment, whether they're from home or working from your co-working space, by educating them on some of the best practices that are out there for teams to work not just okay, but significantly better. The other thing to remember is right now is people need to practice self-care, and we are not doing this. We're not taking enough breaks. We're not moving enough around, but simple things like encourage people to be close to a nice natural light source. If you're going to have a work home setup, make sure you're close to that. Police your posture. We have 56% of the UK workforce are currently experiencing neck, back, and shoulder aches and pains, which they haven't had before, because they're now working hunched over a laptop. Help people think about the ergonomics, educate people about a good environment, about good posture. So when they come into your space, they sit on a good ergonomic chair. At home, they don't have that. So how can we improve that? How can we help them do significantly better? And then one of the biggest things we always say, of course, is help people get a move on. Help people move. They don't get the chance to get out of the house, to come to your space, to cycle there. They just have to kind of deal with it, which is really, really quite tough. The last one on this is we say commit to working from home health. Now, I've got like a little 6-point plan that I always tell people to focus on. First of all is when people are now working from home, help them, educate them, have a dedicated work time. If you're better to start in the morning and finish a little bit later, do that. And that's fine. If you like to start a little bit later and end up a little bit later, do that. Communicate it to everyone saying, this is my best work hours. But also tell the people in your space, your family, and your housemates, this is what I need. So communicate your needs. Say, this is the best time that I'll be able to get my work done, and communicate it absolutely clearly. Next one is check your tech. So make sure before your meetings, everything is actually working. Your laptop needs to be at the right height. You cannot be sitting on a bed or hunched over a laptop for a whole time. Just stack it up on a bunch of books. Get yourself maybe a wireless keyboard or just a keyboard and a mouse. But the screen needs to be at exactly the same height as your eyebrow, so that you're not hunched over, because your neck is as heavy as a bowling ball. It needs to be positioned right over your spine. That's what your spine is designed for, to be able to take all that weight. Commit to your health, move around, eat more, take a break every hour if you possibly can. Dedicate downtime. So book time in your calendar that's just yours. No one can book it in. No one can waste your time. No one can do anything around that because it's your time. So just a little bit of these things, just make sure that you're actually looking after yourself and help your community by doing that. Just share some great insights on how to best work when you're working from home. And then I'll just quickly touch base on the near future. So first thing I want to say, if anybody starts talking to you about guidelines for returning to work, local government or your government and local areas, advice comes first. It trumps everything else. Then you can look at some of the best practices. So we as Herman Miller, we have a big medical division. So we have a lot of great insights on creating, say, safety bundles. So it isn't just one thing that's going to make people feel great about going back into your workspace. It's a bundle of activity called a safety bundle. It is the rules you have, the guidelines you have, the culture you have, and then the actual design of the space. All of this have to work together to create a better result where people are healthier and safer that delivers a better result. So these are just a few key points that I talk about. Increase hygiene through education, communicate to people. The space is being cleaned twice a day. These are the times, these are the people coming in. Have constant cleaning. Think about your circulation space. So where there's high points of people supposed to walk past each other, on all those points, have stations where people can clean their hands and clear signage saying, please clean your hands here. At all those points, so at all intersections, clear signs for people to be able to wash their hands. Reducing density is, of course, quite obvious. We will have to do that to make sure you're not sitting all the time on top of each other. And limit and stop desk sharing. So one of the big things we say is, if you look at the graph on the right, there is an X here, an X here, and an X here. So if you can imagine, on a Monday, someone will sit here, there, and there. And then the one next to it, what you need to do is don't put a massive sign on there saying, please don't sit here, or red tape. That creates a negative feeling in people's minds, and they'll instantly start worrying about the crisis. So what you do is you just put a little pot plant there, or just remove the chair from that area, and then suddenly people know how to use it. So this is what Monday looks like. On Tuesday, you just switch it around. So someone sits over there, above the X, and someone sits over there, and that's their space for the day. That's their space for the day. Unless it's being cleaned after, someone shouldn't be sitting there after someone has actually used it. And then, of course, reduce in-person interaction as much as humanly possible. This is one of the big things happening. We have an office opening in Hong Kong. Temperature checks also just gives people safety. Every time someone comes in the building, they do an infrared camera test, just to make sure that you don't have a temperature. You need increased ventilation rates, even if you can just open as many windows as humanly possible. Adapt and limit meeting rooms, except that a 4-person meeting room becomes a 1-person conference room. That's just how it is. A 6-person meeting room becomes a 3-person meeting room. And what you need to do is, instead of saying don't sit on the other chairs, just remove them from the space. So instead of making it a negative again, you just take it away so people know what the distancing rules are, quite simply. And again, from the World Health Organization, change your terminology because it really has an impact on people's minds. It's physical distancing, it's not social distancing. So please stop using the word social distancing. We don't want to decrease our social interaction. It's a physical distance we want to keep, but we still want a social interaction with others. And then remember one thing. One of the biggest reasons why companies now are going to start choosing to use co-working is because of transport. Because they don't want their staff to get onto public transport, or their staff doesn't want to get onto public transport. So they want to be walking distance or cycling to you. So you need to increase your capacity for bicycles as much as possible, because that's what companies now will start to do. They'll get you to start using the local co-working space, and you can cycle there, and that'll make their employees feel great too. So that's just a few hints. We do is significantly more. If you want more detail on this, we do whole seminars on a 33-page plan on what you should do to think about return to work. Get in contact with me if you need to. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, or I'm always on LinkedIn where I share research on this, but I would be very happy to do so. On that note, I'll just want to share one last thing with you, which I thought is fantastic. I got a really, really great piece on Instagram, and I thought it's a good explanation of how tough some people really have it and how much people are looking forward to actually start using the environments that are available to us. So this is from a mother, of course, who goes, "Mum is in a meeting from 9:30 to 11 and a big sign on saying, 'Do not enter.'" And I love her answers. The answer to your question might be, it's upstairs, it's in the wash, I don't know what's for dinner. The answer is no, it's in your bedroom or a piece of fruit. So on that note, I am gonna stop sharing. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them now.
That's a really funny ending. Thank you, Bertie, for sharing. I think we do have a few questions actually that came in during your talk. So let's see what type of questions people added in the comments.
Sure.
It's gonna load. So where are the borders between home, personal, private life, and work, professional development life?
A fantastic question. I think the one thing we have to understand is the borders is personal. So some people love sharing all of themselves in work and connect with everyone on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Twitter. Others like to keep it separate, and we have to make enough space and time for everything to be okay. So if you want to share all of yourself in work and all of everything is that you do, you can, but you don't have to. You don't have to add everyone to Facebook. You don't have to add everyone to Instagram and do that. It is a personal choice to have that balance. And the key thing that we do have to understand too is that some people work better at certain hours. And one of the difficulties we sometimes have is if I'm a morning person and my boss is an evening person, and they might expect me to be on for those hours. So it's education, and we need to change about the work that we deliver and not how much time we spend on the computer. And the biggest thing I can tell you right now, the less time, if you spend less time working, the more productive you will be. It's really quite incredible. If you take more breaks, if you get more blood circulation to the body, if you rest more, you are more productive in the hours that you actually commit to work. So I would just say commit absolutely to a core routine. Like I do that every day. I start with yoga. I got three breaks booked in. No one can touch that. And then I finish at say 5 or 5:30. I got exercise after that every day. And that's how I work. But I'm productive in those hours. At the start of this whole crisis, I was doing 2 or 3 hours more in a day. And I nearly burned out, and my quality of work started to drop too. So it's about a balance. Cool.
Next question.
Sure, go ahead.
And what should be done in considering the cost performance?
Considering the cost performance, I'm not 100% sure what that means. But I think the idea is to understand is that right now, people are working from home, and whilst they work from home, we need to make them productive. And by productive, that doesn't mean spending loads and loads of time on your computer. I think it means a lot around looking after all of the additional elements. If I was in a great co-working space, I would have all these wonderful amenities. I would have a great coffee space. I would have yoga. I would have move around. I would have all of that. Right now, I don't have that, and we need to look after that. But in environments where people go in, for instance, in co-working spaces right now, I would look at what you have available. So first of all is look at the cleaning regimes of all the products that you currently have instead of buying new ones. Look at all the, if you get the right cleaning regimes of the right products, then you don't have to buy a new thing for that to replace it, because that's the more important. Cleaning is more important than getting something else in. I would look at specifically things on how you can move your things around. Your soft seating areas, how do you make that individual? So just move things around so that each one becomes individual. When it's an individual section and you can just do it by changing the direction of furniture, suddenly it becomes a better space to use. So there's some cool creative things you can do to actually create a better space without spending a lot of money.
Question from the Slack because we have a Slack running for the event. So someone is asking, my business team deals with the access control of workspaces. What are your insights about security and safety in the future of work?
Okay, so this is a very, very tricky one. On the one slide that I had was basically AI, automation, all these things. And of course, there's a lot of worries about this, but the bring your own device is kind of here to stay. So people will have their own devices to be able to work from, but we are massively, massively worried about everything that is internet connected. So I do see there's some things moving forward, but there are some things also moving backwards because if everything becomes IoT connected, it's a massive, huge risk. It really, really is. The key thing is to find a balance about what's important to you and your organization and the way that you work.
There's another question I saw on the Slack. When you spoke about the change of mindset that people need to have, people were wondering if there will be also a change of furniture to support this change of mindset in the workplace.
Yes, well, I mean, there's a big thing around psychological safety. So people talk about, putting screens on top of desks so that there's no interaction. That's more psychological safety than physical, because the virus can stay on a surface for 3 days. So if it isn't cleaned, then really it's actually doing more damage. So it can stay in the particles can stay in the air for 3 hours. So ventilation is absolutely key. I think the idea around the right furniture, the right thing, is layout. Layout is #1. We've got a really incredible document that if you log onto the Herman website, it's a detailed document that shows you what you can do with some of your designs. So the direction that everything is facing and how you can move things around, because that's almost more important than bringing in some major changes. Of course, furniture with good cleaning regimes, like everything from Herman Miller, is got detail. We supply the medical fields, so detail on how to clean it. If it's super easy, then fantastic. If you buy items that's difficult to clean, it's going to be a problem.
One question that I had listening to you, because through the talks we had since yesterday, a lot of the coworking operators, especially in Europe, were saying that members are coming back to the workplace, but way less than what they expected, and they also come way less often. So they come only like 2 or 3 days a week, when before they were used to come like every day. Yeah. So what's your view on the new purpose of the office or the workspace in general? If people come less to it, like what will be the new purpose of this workspace?
The purpose of the workspace, even in this time of crisis, is people still remember. For some people, their work environments are really bad. The home environments to work in, they cannot wait to get out. They don't have ergonomic support, which they have in your space. They don't have all of these things. They don't have access to natural light. They don't have these things, so they want to come in. For others, it will be that creating that sense of community. But for a lot of people not coming into your space, it is a safety concern. So the biggest thing you can do is communicate what you're doing in a safety bundle. What is the organizational culture doing? What are your guidelines? What are your rules? How has the space changed? How are you moving things around? What is the cleaning protocols? What do you do when people come in? And communicate that all to your community. Because if they know I'll be safe when I come in, they'll be much happier to come in. For a lot of people, they don't feel that yet. They don't know what you've done to change it, and I don't want to risk it if I come in. So explain in detail what you are doing to improve the health of everyone. And it has to be the whole safety package.
I see we have comments from people who watched. Bertie, thank you. This is really, really insightful and useful. I couldn't agree more. And thanks, very, very good session. A lot of thoughts to ponder on, right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bertie, for sharing. As I said at the beginning of your session, I hope everybody took a lot of notes. I did. I have a full page of notes. So that was really valuable. Before I let you go, I started these little things with each and every speaker to take a selfie because, as I always say, as we are not in the same room, I cannot take a picture next to you. So can you just give me your best smile so I can make a screenshot of us? 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Thank you so much, Bertie, on behalf of everybody. I'm clapping for your presentation. If people want to connect with you, I added your LinkedIn profile into the welcome kit that they received, so they can add you and ask you and continue the conversation. I wish you a really nice day in London, and I hope we'll get the chance to see each other soon.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Cheers, Pauline. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
You too.